Welcome back. So what happens when you ban critical race theory? This is fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating. The Republican Party had been casting about for much of this year. I mean, we're what, 8 months into the year now, and trying to find some little hook that they could put into the body politic of Americans and drag them along with the Republicans. And you know, they tried multiple things. None of them seemed to stick. You know, Biden is with the what was it called? The American Rescue Plan, the piece of legislation back in June that, you know, that cut child poverty in America by half. And the Republicans tried their, oh my God, what's it going to do to the deficit or the debt? And Americans were like, seriously? You know, Donald Trump, when he came into office, the national debt was $20 trillion. When he left, it was $27 trillion. And you're going to tell us that all of a sudden you guys are worried about the national debt? They're trying it again, by the way. This is, you know, Susan Collins this weekend on TV. Infrastructure debt. Oh, my God. Oh, yeah, right. Americans aren't buying it anymore. We have figured out that Ronald Reagan, from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump, the Republican Party have been running a con job on us, a scam. So, you know, they went after the whole abortion thing, and they went after, oh, it's, you know, the Democrats are the parties of legalizing marijuana, and people were like, okay, that's cool with us. And then they tried going after trans people and, you know, and whipping up a hysteria about trans folks in sports and all this kind. And, you know, none of it stuck. They weren't able to demonize the usual suspects. And I don't know if it's just that, you know, after 40 years, Americans have figured out that we've been conned, or if we kind of had a come to Jesus moment with the coronavirus and seeing people around us getting sick and dying and being confronted with our own mortality. Suddenly, a lot of this small stuff like, you know, gee, is my neighbor gay, became something that even the bigots decided bigotry was too much trouble. But whatever it was, they weren't able to get, you know, that hook into us until they discovered critical race theory. And of course, the reason they were so successful with this is because nobody knows what the hell critical race theory is. Because it's this weird little academic subset of legal studies, actually. It's a subset. It's not a subset of African American studies. It's a subset of law. And, you know, about how, you know, for example, when my dad came back from World War II, in 1940, whatever it was, 1948, 49, when he came back from 2 years occupying Japan after World War II, he bought a house and he got a college education, and both were subsidized. He went to college for free. In fact, they gave him a stipend to go to college. And, you know, he got a house with the GI Bill. But the black guys that he was serving with in Japan couldn't. Why is that? Well, it turns out the law was being used to make that happen. Redlining was enforced by law. The inability of black people to vote was enforced by law. This was Supreme Court doctrine, Plessy versus Ferguson, 1898. And of course, that didn't get overthrown until 1965. My dad got out of the military in 1948, as I recall. So, critical race theory, as I said, is this, you know, this legal thing. Or, you know, why is it that highways, when Eisenhower was building freeways, they always seem to go through black neighborhoods or separate black neighborhoods from white neighborhoods? How'd that happen? How is it that the power plants that are spewing all the poison, especially the coal-fired ones where they got these giant piles of coal ash that is toxic and radioactive and filled with heavy metals and poison, how come they're always upwind from the black community? Well, it turns out there's a reason for all those. It's not random. It's not accidental. And it's done with the force of law. So that's critical race theory. Well, nobody's teaching that stuff to 10-year-olds in 3rd or 4th grade. But nobody knows that, right? Nobody knows what critical race theory is. And so the Republicans were able to reinvent critical race theory and say, let me tell you what critical race theory is. Critical race theory is when you tell white children that they should feel bad because their ancestors had slaves who were black. And therefore, the little white children are guilty and should just sit around and cry all day long. I mean, this is the Republican sales pitch. I mean, it's a lie about what critical race theory is, and it's an attempt to distort America's history. But in any case, we've got state after state. I think we've got 17 states now where they've passed laws banning critical race theory being taught, either at the state level or various county levels. You've got this explosion of the takeover of school boards. Here in Oregon, there was, this is, OregonLive.com is how you find the Oregonian, our local newspaper here. And this article by Eder Campuzano, titled, Oregon School Board Politics Have Never Been So Polarized, Partisan, and Hostile to Racial Equity. And they're talking about the town of Albany, Oregon. It's a little town, right? In the last 10, 15 years, every school board election, there's been basically one person running, the incumbent. It's 9 times out of 10, these are not even contested elections, right? When you vote for the school board member, you have one choice, and that's the person who's already on the school board. Because nobody wants to volunteer, it's not paid, or if it is paid, it's so little, it's not worth the effort. You got to take time away from a real job, in quotes. I mean, maybe being on the state school board in Texas pays money, but not in a little town, small town Oregon, or Washington State, or Idaho, or even small town New York, or Maryland, or Georgia. But suddenly there is this explosion of people running for school boards all across the country. And they're QAnon followers and Republicans, and they're all babbling about critical race theory. Oh my God, this is a threat to our children. It's going to make them feel terrible, our poor little white kids. You know, their basic premise is little black kids are perfectly old enough and tough enough to deal with being the victims of racism. But little white kids, they're too fragile and too young to even learn about it. So this is going on. You know, they're talking about from 2009 to 2015, out of 10 school board races across Oregon, only 2 of those 10 races had more than one candidate. In other words, it was always the incumbent running. But this is just exploding across the country. And now in Michigan, this ban on teaching critical race theory, it actually, the law, it hasn't passed yet in Michigan, but it's a proposed law, and it says that teachers can be subject to, they can be sued by parents, they can lose their jobs. They have not put criminal penalties in here yet, but the civil penalties are substantial if they teach, quote, anti-American and racist theories. Now, who determines what's anti-American or racist? And what they're explicitly saying, it also prohibits teaching that the United States is a fundamentally racist country. And so you've got these teachers. In fact, this is the guy who wrote the bill. His name is Barrett. He's a state legislator. He said, critical race theory degrades pride in America and degrades our freedoms and liberties. We can't teach these kids this stuff. And so what's happening now is teachers are, they're worried. I mean, this piece from the Detroit News, U.S. history teacher Matt Enix and his 8th grade class watched together online as the mob broke into the Capitol building. And he was talking about how, the kids are asking questions. What's going on with this? Why are people doing this? And kids ask questions like, why is it that the power plants are always upwind of the black community? Why is it that so many black people in America are living in poverty? Why is it that Native Americans are still on reservation? Why is it that, and the teachers are now getting to the point where they're afraid to answer these questions. Because if they do answer these questions truthfully, they can not just lose their jobs, but in some cases they can be sued by parents for tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars for polluting the brains of their little white children. This is serious and dangerous stuff. If we are going to be, Elie Mystal, by the way, for The Nation, he wrote this brilliant piece, Republicans hate voting rights because they threaten white power. And he quotes Senator Mike Lee, the Republican from Utah, who repeatedly says, we're not a democracy. This is the whole Republican thing. We're not, because democracy sounds like democratic, right? We're not a democracy, we're a republic. And he goes on to say, democracy isn't the objective. Liberty, peace, and prosperity are the objective of American government. And we can get there without democracy. Oh. Well, this, as Elie Mystal says, this is, if you want to end white male hegemony in the new world, then you have universal suffrage. Let everyone vote. And equal representation. He says these are the surest ways to end white male political supremacy, which is exactly what they're trying to avoid. He also points out that this didn't start with Donald Trump, that this whole movement to reinvent America's racial history, to get control of what we teach in our schools, and to suppress the vote in black neighborhoods, this whole movement began in 2008 when Barack Obama became president. This is all a reaction to our having had a black president. And now we've got a black vice president, and they're going after her. Same thing. And it's all about maintaining and strengthening, actually, white supremacy in the United States. And we just need to be clear about that. We need to be upfront about that. And when we hear about these laws trying to ban critical race theory from the Republican Party because they think they're going to win the 2022 and 2024 elections based on this, that it is all about promoting white supremacy. And frankly, who are the most outspoken advocates for white supremacy in the United States? The people that the FBI is now calling terrorists. They are proposing laws to support terrorists. Let that sink in.